Hello, you are listening to the Gamer Librarian Podcast, the best podcast you can find on this side of the multiverse. I am your host, Adrian, and today I will be talking about the latest update on Microsoft's acquisition of Activision and Blizzard, Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, and several other video games. Afterwards, be sure to subscribe to be notified when future episodes are released, and show your support by liking and leaving a comment. Thank you for joining. Let's talk about the main topic of today's episode and what is potentially the biggest impact to the gaming industry in the last few years, and that's Microsoft's current attempt to acquire Activision Blizzard for the price of $69 billion, which, as far as I can see, is the largest buyout of any company, I think, ever. And I think in the gaming industry, those two might be different kinds of records, but I'm pretty sure it's one in one for each other. And this is crazy, absolutely crazy that the FTC has claimed that the merger is on the up and up, and there's no signs of a monopoly being formed or some kind of nefarious acts behind this deal, as far as they could tell. So they dropped all their investigations into them buying the company. And that's really good for Microsoft because now they have a clean open door to just give money to the companies and take in their products and their licenses and everything they have and turn them into something that I think would be very beneficial to the gaming industry. Now, Blizzard and Activision merged sometime in 2008, and that's right off the back end of Blizzard selling games like Diablo and World of Warcraft was really big back then. And Activision was doing extremely well back then too, as for at least as somebody who was playing a lot of the games that they put out. They put out so many games. Their logo was behind so many Atari games from way back when, up until the 2000s with the like video game ports of movies, like kids movies. So many of those titles have these companies and their blood in them that it's crazy to think that this is something that's going to turn into uh, a pivot for Microsoft to get all these titles under one roof, under one umbrella, theirs. And that's caused a lot of contention for people because a lot of people think that this is going to cause a monopoly in the gaming industry and that it's going to stymie like creativity for lesser developers that aren't under Microsoft branch. And I truly don't think that's the case. I truly don't think that Microsoft going out of their way to try and sure, you can see it as them just flat out acquiring titles so they don't have to make their own original AAA titles or their own original games. But I definitely don't see that as the case here because if you look at what the titles they could gain from Blizzard and Activision, there's so many titles that they can take from, so many, and I know that more than half, almost like 60 or 80% of these games will never be touched, will never be looked at ever again. All the Cabela's ports that you have, all the video game movie adaptations that you have, all the smaller titles, not a lot of them are going to be revitalized or looked at after this merger. They'll probably be added to things like Game Pass. I think that would be like the best bet ever, is just for Microsoft to take some of their already popular studios and get them to work on these games, port them over to Game Pass, or maybe make some other kind of version of these games, like a collection or something. That'd be really dope. But the bigger games that I want to talk about is the large headlines that Blizzard and Activision have put out over the years, such as Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Overwatch, and StarCraft, just to name a few. Those games are probably the biggest titles that Microsoft could acquire from this deal. And that's insane. And especially when you think about half of the games are exclusive in some way, like World of Warcraft is super exclusive to just PC. Absolutely just PC. You cannot play that game on a console in any fashion as far as I can see. So World of Warcraft is a big, giant piece of this pie. Second, or probably larger than World of Warcraft, maybe is Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty has a long-standing history of being a massive console game. I mean, it started on the consoles from what I could see. I know it had PC ports, but it gave life to the consoles. I know for a fact, as being a kid in middle school, high school, going and buying um, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2, and every single iteration since up until I think World War was maybe the last one. Um, I really bought and played at launch Call of Duty World War One or whatever they did. It's like around Vanguard or whenever. I dropped off sometime around like Black Ops 4 or something. But there's like Xbox main era with like Call of Duty Finest Hour, like Call of Duty 2, I think that's what it's called. And then you have them on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 with Modern Warfare 4. And up until then, they've been hitting it out of the park ever since. Depending on what you think is good or bad for a Call of Duty game, with things like Warzone and Battle Royale and single player modes not being part of the full package. You know, this is a big contention point because Call of Duty is one of the leading first person shooter franchises out there. I mean, it's pushing the envelope as far as I can see. Every iteration of it comes out every year, and they're better than that last one. They still make tons of money. These games are up to par for enough standards that millions of gamers are still playing them. Even if I haven't played them in the last few years, I can still recognize that like these are massive titles that are going to absolutely pivot the gaming industry should this deal go through. And I don't think Microsoft is going to be nefarious with their holdings. I think they're actually going to be fairly lenient on their titles because, well, it's Microsoft. They do have their console, the Xbox, but they also expanded their Game Pass onto PC. So whatever titles are going to be on Game Pass are going to also be on PC, and almost any title that isn't going to be under Game Pass, if it's a Microsoft title, it's going to be on PC. And they've already shown that with various Bethesda games being allowed to be on Sony consoles and even Nintendo consoles. Nintendo and Xbox seem to have a very good relationship, especially if you look at Smash Brothers, where almost half, I think, of the Mii fighters that are skins for Smash Bros. Ultimate are Microsoft characters. You have um, Doom Slayer, who is now Microsoft. You have I don't think Master Chief is there. That's kind of a letdown. Cuphead, you have so many. The Skyrim guy because they own them now, or yeah, Bethesda. So they do own the Skyrim character. The Fallout Boy is there as well. It's been a while since I even played a Mii fighter, but Microsoft and Nintendo do seem to be on good heads together. They seem to be working well together, and that's really good for us because as consumers, that's relatively what we want. We want them to play ball together, and they have mentioned that they're going to be trying to make Call of Duty games for Nintendo products, namely the Switch, and that's, I think, a high bar to establish because Call of Duty games, especially now, have become very technical in how they're made and how they run. And the Switch is just a very minimal old piece of hardware. It came out in 2016. It's almost like 8 years old now, and there's going to be a Switch 2. So maybe if they're developing Call of Duties on the Switch 2 to get them run to some degree, that could possibly work. I mean, if Switch could play Fortnite and Doom and Skyrim, maybe it could play newer Call of Duties on lower settings, but that's very speculative. But I'm hopeful. I don't think I'd buy a Call of Duty game on the Switch ever, but that's still something really good for just the average consumer. If you only have a Switch, you want to play Call of Duty, but you don't have the other consoles or a PC, that's a really good idea. And other than Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, in my opinion, those are probably like the two largest titles they could gain from this merger. There's a slew of smaller titles that are there. I say smaller because they're not actually as big as these two. Things like Diablo and Overwatch. Diablo had just came out earlier within the month, and that game is absolutely great. Diablo 4, and that is a title that Microsoft could probably see putting onto Game Pass for free to play. Right? You get one character if you get on Game Pass maybe, and you just play that character forever. That'd be really dope. Um, Overwatch 2 was like I think taken down because they didn't get their single player content and everything else they promised out and about for that game, and that's a shame. So I don't know what Microsoft is going to really do with that. I think they should just ignore it, but that's just me. StarCraft is a title that has been neglected ever since I think StarCraft 4. They might have some announcement that came out a few years ago, and we haven't seen anything from it. I really unsure. I don't really play the StarCraft games, but that's definitely a big contender for one of the last Blizzard games that people love. And Crash Bandicoot and Spyro as two actual gaming mascots. I mean mascots because they're highly coveted for games like Smash Bros. And getting ports again. And then Crash Bandicoot even got a brand new game, Crash Bandicoot 4, and I think a phone game now. So there's obviously some love still with those characters, and I think that those are probably the highest likely chances of Microsoft making those games again. So there's a lot that can happen with the Activision Blizzard uh, acquisition from Microsoft. And Microsoft, I think, has the opportunity to really take a lot of these games and not only put them in the hands of fans who never played them before because they haven't had iterations in the last few years, but they could also do something really new with these games. And what I mean that is like something like World of Warcraft has been around for absolute decades, true decades. This is like one of the oldest MMOs you could play, but it also isn't the biggest MMO you could play. In the last few years, games like Final Fantasy XIV have overtaken that helm as the world's most played world MMO within the last few years. And that's not to knock on World of Warcraft for having any shortcomings, because those are two very different MMOs, and I don't really want to compare them for this episode. But what I think that Microsoft could do is that they can give life to World of Warcraft and Call of Duty, Diablo, even Overwatch 2, into some way that benefits them and Game Pass and the consumers who have already earned this game, played it, put thousands upon hours into those games, because they're games that shouldn't be forgotten. I don't think World of Warcraft 1, like World of Warcraft MMO proper, should be disestablished or anything when it comes to transferring to Game Pass or whatever they're going to do. Or forget World of Warcraft 2. I think they should just stick with World of Warcraft, add in more updates, give a large expansion, an expansion specific to Game Pass, right? Here's an expansion that you get for $15 a month, or you just pay flat out for it, and you get access to it from Game Pass, and that's just it. That's something. But this is something that's really big in the gaming industry, and I don't think it's going to lead to as many issues that people are saying, especially like the idea of creativity, like it's going to stymie creativity or like put the industry in a box where we can't get innovation or we can't get new ideas. I don't think that's the case, because gamers always want new things. We've had Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, Crash and Spyro and StarCraft for years. We've had them for years. And we know what they're supposed to be like. We know what those games are supposed to play like. And we love the characters and the world that they've brought us to. But gamers are always going to want something more. I would always want a newer good game than a good game based on a product that I've already seen before. I may not particularly love any of the titles here. I think the most love I have for any of these older games, besides Diablo that I've been playing recently, is probably Spyro. Spyro was one of my favorite games growing up. Spyro Enter the Dragonfly on the GameCube was the first I ever played, and I will hype that game up as the best Spyro game out there. I don't care. So I don't think that this is really going to put any kind of hindrances on creativity, because there's always going to be indie developers, smaller companies, and much larger developers and publishers with great talent behind them that are going to create and put out the games that we want to see. So this is what I want to say on that. I think that this is going to be really good for the gaming industry. Maybe if you're not a Xbox fan, maybe if you're just a Sony or PC hard loyalist, you might just, be a little butthurt about it. But at the end of the day, Microsoft is really just trying to put a lot more games in a lot more people's hands, And whatever you think about them as a company in the last few years, I think that you can recognize that this is most likely the better bet, considering recent actions that have happened under Blizzard and Activision. I won't go into that. You can look it up yourself because it's been talked about to death. But I think this is a really good change for us. And I hope that it's something that everybody can recognize. And I just hope that it does bear fruit within the next year or so. So, with talking about the acquisition, now that that's over, let me give you a little update on, I don't know, at least myself. I don't really think I talk about myself a lot in these podcasts. I don't know if anybody really knows uh, much about me or anything that's going on with my life. You know, you're listening to me make these episodes and so on, and I do talk about mostly video games and books here, but I know that I missed an episode last week. I've been very busy with work and going out with friends and things like that. I just haven't had time to sit down on my computer and put an episode together and talk about what I want to talk about. But I have been trying to keep up with games and books. You know, that's part of the hobby or part of my hobbies that I want to keep up on. So I'm going to try and be a little more diligent on putting episodes out. Now, in the last few weeks, I have been thinking about what I wanted to do with my future. You know, I don't know where this podcast show will turn into a few months or years, but it's something that I'm enjoying doing. But I feel like I could do something more for not just myself, but for people and the planet. So I've been dying to become a beekeeper. And, you know, one time in 8th grade, I made like a presentation on bees and the life cycle of bees and what they do for the planet and pollination and helping flowers grow and how crucial they are to the ecosystem of the earth. And so I signed up through Rutgers with beekeeping classes. So sometime in October is when I'll be doing that. But recently I have been looking into growing cannabis. Growing cannabis is something that some people are for or against, but I'm more for it. You know, I'm a big partaker in cannabis and I want to learn how to cultivate it. So I signed up with online classes and I've been learning how to care for and nurture cannabis plants and all the in-betweens and that. So that's been something that's been really enjoyable for me, actually. I thought it's been really fun. It was actually not really a spur of the moment, just you know, I always wanted to see, like, get myself into gardening. That was always something that I was really interested in. But, you know, I just want to see what I could do with this new hobby. You know, I don't claim to be good at it. You know, I don't even have a single plant or a single bee or a queen or hive, but it's something that I think next year, if I stay diligent on my readings and I learn as much as I can, I do think that it's going to be something that I could be very good at. You know, I take the same process to that as I do with the podcast. You know, I don't claim to be the best video editor or speaker out there. You know, for everybody here who's been, you know, listening on and off for the last 16 episodes, it's really nice to have this kind of thing to do. I'm enjoying myself, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. If you are interested in my endeavors in beekeeping or cannabis growing, leave a comment because I want to know if you guys are into that, what you guys think of that as a hobby. Because I myself, I'm a novice. I'm willing to learn, but I'm also, you know, just trying to share my life with you guys. I don't know where I'll be in the next few months. I don't know where I'll be in the next few years, but I see myself being a beekeeper and growing a lot of marijuana. And with that, I did take some time to play some games recently. Last episode, I said I was going to play through Warhammer Space Marine, and I played through some of it. I'm still on the first mission. We attached a bomb to a mortar shell, and we're going to blow something up. But the game is extremely fun. Once you get the jetpack, the game becomes inherently a lot more enjoyable. Instead of just being a hack/slash shooter, now you can like jump into the air and ground pound and do all these cool execution moves and things. And I'm having a blast playing this game. So I hope that I do get to finish it before next episode is out. Again, I apologize for just being late on that. I try to have at least one game and book finished per episode. So, there is that. But Warhammer is fun. As my first ever true dive into a Warhammer game, I'm enjoying myself. I really am. I like the world. The grimdark world is truly, truly interesting. I'm more into the tech priests, and that kind of brings me to my next topic. I think my next Warhammer game that I will play is Warhammer Inquisitor, which seems to be kind of like a Diablo RPG clone. I haven't really seen much gameplay on it, but from what I saw, it seems to have the same kind of layout and system that Diablo 4 has. And from what I saw, they have a Tech Priest DLC, which isn't on sale, but I got the main game as part of Sony's PlayStation Pass stuff, so I got the game, but I don't have the Tech Priest stuff. So maybe if I get that DLC at a sale, I'll blast through that game. Leave a comment if you guys want to see me play through that, or I'm sorry, hear me play through that, because I am interested to see more of a role play narrative kind of viewpoint of Warhammer. The action hack and slash stuff of Space Marine is really fun, and I'm still dying to play Space Marine 2. But you only play as a Space Marine, and you kill orcs in this game, and you kill Tyranids in Space Marine 2, from what we can tell. So I'm just looking to see more about Warhammer. I want to see all that I can get from the franchise, and absolutely still looking forward to Warhammer Rogue Trader, because that game seems awesome. For Divinity fans out there or any other RPG fans out there, that game looks phenomenal. I'm truly sad I couldn't play the beta, but as soon as that game is pre-orderable on any wishlist ever, I'm going to try and get it. It'll probably be on PC first, which is a bummer. I would have liked to get it on my PS5, but I definitely would get it on PC. And other than Warhammer, I have been playing through two other games. And this other game I've mentioned before that I've played through a lot, and that's Diablo. Recently, I just got my Necromancer to level 70, and I did the capstone for World Tier 4. So now I'm on Tier 4, and I can now blast through all of the rest of the content with this character, especially the Season 1 content that's coming out sometime. I think it's July 20th, and I think it's more like an event kind of season where certain enemies will spawn and drop more certain rares and certain items. I think it even adds in like a new jewel system to jewel up your armor and give buff and stuff. So I'm really excited for that. I'm loving Diablo. I really am. Recently, Diablo, at least I don't think it's Diablo proper. It might be my connection, but I've been having some time lagging and slowing down with games. When I play Diablo, like my character would skip from one end of the map to where I was like a few seconds ago. Enemies would spawn late and then lag, and I would die sometimes just by the game catching up. It's either my issue or a combination of my stuff and the Diablo servers, so I don't really take that to heart when the internet connections coming from the game. The game still ran fine, but even through all that mess, I beat through the capstone for Tier 4, and now I'm going up to level 100. I'm still level 70, but I got a long ways to go. XP potions are a man's best friend, and I have a barbarian and a rogue character already up to like level 20, 25, and I think I'm probably going to stick to barbarian for the most part. But Diablo's hell of a lot of fun. Absolutely looking forward to this newest season and any future DLC content they're going to be adding for this game. And the other game I've been playing, and it's a lot less time I put into this game recently, but it's a title I've played so many times. I've played this one game more than 5 times at least since first buying it on the Xbox 360, and that's the Dead Space remake. My girlfriend, Hannah, got it on sale for me from Target, and I immediately popped it in, and upon seeing it on the main menu, the impossible difficulty is fully playable from the start. So that is what I did. As a challenge to myself, I put in the game onto impossible, and I already died. I I died in the med bay, the very first like med bay quarantine lockdown you do. I died. So with that, I'm gonna have to restart, and I'm gonna try and stick to this challenge. I know I could start the game on hard and earn some stuff, then do new game plus and try impossible there, but I don't want to do that. I've played Dead Space so many times. I've even done it on impossible once on the 360, and I'm just looking for another reason to do this. So I think I'm gonna try and beat Dead Space 1, no new game plus, fresh start, no deaths on impossible. And I'm going to try and do that as long as I can. I even have a little paper that has how many deaths I have. It's a post-it note that says Dead Space impossible deaths. I only have one. So, whether it takes me a month or a year or 10 years, Dead Space 1 is going to be a game I'm going to try and beat on impossible because I love this game. It's, I think, absolutely the pinnacle horror game ever. Just ever. Nothing beats it. There's not a single game that beats it. It's snappy, it's scary, you have the survival resource aspect of it, and it's even a great world. The Dead Space spawned 2 or 3 sequels, like 2 proper sequels, and I think like a Wii port, a really shitty Wii game. And they even have a slew of comics and novels, which, if you would like to hear me read about or talk about the novels at some point, please drop a comment and let me know if you want to hear me go through those again, because I would love to read the Dead Space comics and books again, because there's even movies. There's movies for for the Dead Space games. And just let me know if you want me to go through those again, because I would absolutely love to. Dead Space Martyr is an okay book. They give a lot of lore and I think context to the ideas in Dead Space. And if you love Alien or Event Horizon or anything like that, Dead Space is absolutely a game for you. I think Dead Space trumps a lot more horror games like Resident Evil and stuff, because it definitely delivers on the scare aspect a lot more. Resident Evil has kind of leaned away from that. It's a little more actiony at some points, like Resident Evil 6 was like that. 7, I think, is a pretty good attempt, and 8, I wouldn't call 8 scary. 8 is just it feels like a romp, you know. And RE2 is really great, but I don't want to badmouth Resident Evil. But I'm loving Dead Space. I haven't seen much of what's truly different for Dead Space 1 remake versus the original. And that's really just it. If you guys have been playing any of these games, Dead Space, Diablo, any of the Warhammer games, let me know in the comments. And let's see. I have been reading quite a bit from whenever I could. I finished reading for the first time The Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. And as stated, I think in the last episode, I did see the movie a long time ago before reading this book again. And then I watched it a little while ago, right before reading it, just to get an idea what the story was. Because for me, mysteries and mystery thrillers were usually hit or miss, and I don't think it's for a combination of good or bad things. I just think it's me not being interested in following the story sometimes. Not to say the Red Dragon was a boring story, but when it comes to like a lot of characters, and especially when it comes to flipping between perspectives and things like that, I always have a difficult time wrapping all that in my head. But what I will say, Red Dragon, the book, did for me was it had a little more context in terms of the villains, the serial killer, the Tooth Fairy's like perspective in his life. It had a little more nuance to that than I think the movie ever led on to. So that was actually the most enjoyable part of the book, was seeing the serial killer's perspectives. And then you have the main detective character who would try and catch the Tooth Fairy, and you see those lines start to cross until the eventual ending. And it was okay. I don't think I'd ever read it again, especially after already seeing the movie so many times and stuff. But it's definitely good to get this book off of my to read shelf and have it done, because it was so interesting. I always liked the idea of detectives and homicide stories and serial killers, things like that. It's all very cool. What I will say though, probably the most egregious part of the book, and I'm almost certain it's probably the same amount as the movie, is that the reason you would read the book, at least from what it claims, is it being the introduction of the character Hannibal Lecter. And Hannibal really doesn't do much in this book. He is talked to once or twice by the detective, and then he sends some cryptic letters. But it's kind of flat in my opinion. But that doesn't overall hurt the book. But I think if you were really truly only here to like get any kind of more idea of Hannibal Lecter, that's probably the least prominent aspect of the book is him as a character. Even though his name is on the cover, it's the book that introduces Hannibal Lecter. And obviously he'll become more prevalent in later books and the movies, Silence of the Lambs, and things like that. I don't know if I'll read that. In the comments, you guys can tell me if you want me to do that, but I don't know if I'll do. I've seen the movie so many times already that I don't even know if I would even attempt to read it in the foreseeable future. So that's it on what I read recently. For now, I'm going to keep it pretty light. My next book is going to be a book I've read before, The Dark Tower by Stephen King. It's book 1, The Gunslinger. If you know of the Dark Tower series, then try not to leave any spoilers in comments because it's a fairly lengthy series. But I think it's super enjoyable. For one of Stephen King's like more original fantasy series, I think it's great. You get such a deep cast throughout its entire 7-book amount that by the end of it, you're absolutely wanting more. Like, it's so strange that this adventure ends by book 7 that, I think it's truly worth it that you read the book once, or like read the series once, and then after reading book 7, you go back and read book 1. I think that's like one of the best things you could do for The Dark Tower is after reading book 7 is absolutely going into book 1, because Roland is such a great character whose drive is just based so purely on wanting to do good and right the world that by the end of it, the hard reset is truly tragic. There is a movie for The Dark Tower. Don't watch it. Don't watch it because it's a horrid attempt at claiming what The Dark Tower series is. I think that even the book claims to be like set after the Dark Tower series, like it's like the Dark Tower books and then the Dark Tower movie happens in terms of like its canon. I don't care. Don't watch it. It's not that great. But yeah, Dark Tower is a book that I've loved for a while, and I'm truly great to talk about this book and the next in the series that here on the podcast. And I'll know what else I'll be doing. I think I'm just gonna try and stick to Warhammer and Diablo until Pikmin comes out, and then up until then, you guys can hopefully wait for me to talk about Pikmin. And I don't know what book I'll read next. I did get on sale the sequel books for the Ring series. If you guys saw last few episodes ago, I read The Ring by Koji Suzuki, I think, and that was really great. So I went and bought the 2 sequels, and I'm truly excited to read those because they seem bonkers and crazy and just absolutely enjoyable. They seem really great from first glance. Don't judge this book by its cover, haha. But I think that's about it. I think we have a decent runtime here for the episode, and I'm going to try again, like I said, get these out on a more prominent schedule so that people who may be waiting per week or will get the episode when they can. But I'm going camping in the next few weeks, so I don't know what we'll be doing with the episodes by then. So, like I said, it's in the air. But I'm going to try and be diligent with the podcast and my other endeavors, like my full-time job that I have and my 2 new hobbies, beekeeping and cannabis growing. So, everyone, thank you for listening, and I hope to have you tune in for next episode. This has been episode 16 of the Gamer Librarian podcast. Be sure to subscribe for updates on future episode releases. Leave a like and comment on what games or books I should talk about in the future. Thank you, and see you next time.